Online 3-bet strategy. 3-betting is where online players separate themselves fast. In online poker games, you are multi-tabling, facing tight opening ranges, and paying meaningful rake. That combination rewards aggression, punishes passivity, and makes just call and see a flop a losing default. Your goal with a 3-bet is not just to build a pot with premiums. Your goal is to win expected value now, deny equity, and force your opponent into uncomfortable range decisions. If you are only 3-betting pocket queens and better and ace-king, you are letting good regulars open too wide and realize equity too cheaply. What a 3-bet actually accomplishes. A clean 3-bet does 3 things at once. First, it isolates a player and removes the field behind you. Second, it prints fold equity when their open range contains hands that cannot defend properly. Third, it upgrades your equity realization by taking initiative and often getting heads up. Online, these edges compound because decisions are faster and more standardized. Many players defend with autopilot frequencies, which means your sizing and your range construction can farm predictable mistakes. Start with who is left to act. Before you even look at your cards, check what matters most, who is left to act. Cold callers behind you reduce your fold equity and raise the chance you get squeezed. Players behind you also dictate how wide you can 3-bet bluff, especially on the button and in the small blind. Context dictates strategy. A button 3-bet versus a cutoff open with 2 nits in the blinds is a very different animal than the same spot with a squeeze happy, regular in the small blind. Online ranges are tighter, so your 3-bets must be cleaner. Most online pools open tighter than live, especially in early positions, and they defend 3-bets with more structure. That means you cannot spray 3-bets without thinking. But it also means when you choose the right spots, your opponent's range is easier to attack. Against under-the-gun opens, your 3-bet bluff frequency should drop sharply. Against cutoff and button opens, especially from thinking regulars who steal too much, you can attack more because their open contains more weak hands and more hands that hate playing 3-bet pots. Sizing, your default online formula. Keep your sizing consistent enough that you are not giving away hand strength, but dynamic enough to match position and stack depth. First, in position, use smaller 3-bets. Versus a 2.0x to 2.5x open, a common baseline is around 3.0x to 3.5x. Second, out of position, you pay an extra tax because you realize equity worse. Go bigger, often around 4.0x to 5.0x. Third, versus recreational players, size up for value. They call too much and fold too little, so you want more money in with hands that dominate their continues. Fourth, deep stacks increase size slightly out of position to reduce their positional advantage and reduce cheap realization with suited hands. Relative strength is everything. A hand like ace-queen suited can be a slam dunk value. 3-bet versus a wide button open and a cautious mix versus an under-the-gun open. Build your 3-bet range, value, bluffs, and blockers. Your 3-bet range needs 2 engines, value and pressure. Value hands are the ones that happily get called and still perform well. Pressure hands are chosen because they block strong continues and have playability when called. In practice online, a strong default is to 3-bet your top value, then add bluffs that have at least one of these properties. First, blockers to the opponent's 4-bet range, like ace-x suited and some king-x suited. Second, playability post-flop, like suited connectors and suited broadways, especially when you will have position. Third, dominating potential versus their calling range, like ace-jack suited, king-queen suited, and sometimes king-jack suited, depending on position. Do not fall into hope poker. Flat calling with hands that cannot win without flopping big is a rake trap online. If your plan is set mine or hit a draw, you are often donating because you miss too often and pay rake when you do hit. Exploit the population, then protect yourself. Versus most online regulars, you will see 2 common leaks. One group overfolds to 3-bets, especially from the blinds. The other group overcalls and then plays fit or fold post-flop. Both are profitable, but you punish them differently. First, if they overfold, widen your 3-bet bluffs and keep sizing efficient. Your expected value comes from immediate folds. Second, if they overcall, tighten your bluffs, add more thin value, and size bigger. You want them to put money in dominated. Against strong-thinking regulars, you need a baseline of balance so they cannot just 4-bet you relentlessly. That does not mean you play pure GTO on every table. It means your range has enough protected value and enough credible bluffs that their counter strategy is uncomfortable. 4-bet threats and how they change your 3-bet plan. When you 3-bet, you are not only choosing a hand, you are choosing a response tree. Ask yourself, if they 4-bet, what do I do? If you cannot answer that cleanly, your 3-bet is probably not well constructed. Online, many players 4-bet too linear, mostly pocket queens and better an ace-king. That makes blocker bluffs better because you reduce the combos of the hands they continue with. Other players 4-bet bluff aggressively from late position battles. Against them, you respond by tightening your worst bluffs and adding more 5-bet jam candidates at 100 big blinds. Hand scenario, the multi-table squeeze test. Online 6 max, 100 big blinds effective. A solid regular opens cut off to 2.2 big blinds. You are in the small blind with 8-7 suited. Big blind is a recreational player who calls too much and rarely 4-bets. You 3-bet to 10 big blinds. Cutoff calls, big blind folds. Flop comes ace of spades, 9 of clubs, 6 of diamonds. You are out of position with a gutter and backdoor flush draw. Action. You bet 6-5 big blinds into 21 big blinds. Cutoff folds. This is the online version of printing. Your 3-bet, picked a hand with playability, you sized big enough out of position to increase fold equity, and you chose a flop size that pressures their Broadway and pocket pair continues. Even when they call, you still have turn equity on many runouts. The key is you are not calling in the small blind and letting big blind come along. You are taking the initiative and forcing the cutoff to defend a range that is capped and uncomfortable on many boards. Common 3-bet mistakes I want you to stop making. First, flatting too much in the blinds. Out of position, realization is poor and rake is real. If the hand is not strong enough to 3-bet, it is often a fold. Second, 3-betting hands that cannot continue. If every 4-bet makes you miserable, your bluff selection is off. Third, using tiny out-of-position 3-bets. You give great price, invite calls, and then you play a bloated pot from the worst seat. Fourth, ignoring player type. The right 3-bet range versus a nit is not the right range versus a wide stealing regular or a calling station. How you know your 3-bet strategy is working. Track your outcomes with honest benchmarks. You should see opponents folding pre-flop at meaningful frequency, and you should feel like post-flop you have initiative with a coherent range. If you are constantly guessing, facing too many multi-way pots, or getting 4-bet more than you expected, your construction or your table selection is leaking expected value. One more point, because this is online. Multi-tabling rewards simplicity and repeatable heuristics. Build defaults by position, then adjust for the pool. That is how you stay aggressive without spewing. Key takeaway. Your online 3-bet strategy should be built around expected value, not vibes. Start with who is left to act, then pick a sizing that matches position. 3-bet a tight value core, add pressure hands with blockers and playability, and stop donating with passive blind flats. If the pool overfolds, widen your bluffs. If they overcall, size up and value bet them harder. Now, let's test your edge. Question 1. What are the 3 main things a clean 3-bet accomplishes according to the article? Answer. It isolates the opener, generates fold equity, and upgrades equity realization by taking initiative, often getting heads up. Explanation. The article states these 3 benefits happen at once when your 3-bet removes players behind, forces folds from weak opens, and lets you realize equity better with initiative. Question 2. Before looking at your cards, what does the article say you should check first when deciding whether to 3-bet? Answer. Who is left to act? Explanation: players behind you affect fold equity, the risk of getting squeezed, and how wide you can 3-bet bluff, especially on the button and in the small blind. Question 3. What default sizing does the article recommend for 3-betting in position versus a 2.0x to 2.5x open? Answer: around 3.0x to 3.5x. Explanation: the article recommends smaller 3 bets in position to keep sizing consistent and efficient versus common open sizes. Question 4. How does the article say you should adjust if a population is overfolding to 3 bets? Answer: widen your 3-bet bluffs and keep sizing efficient. Explanation: when opponents fold too much, the expected value comes from immediate folds, so you profit by adding more pressure hands without inflating size unnecessarily. Question 5. In the multi-table squeeze test hand scenario, what flop bet size is used for the C bet? Answer: 6.5 big blinds into 21 big blinds. Explanation: the scenario describes C betting 6.5 big blinds into 21 big blinds to apply pressure to the caller's Broadway, and pocket pair continues while retaining turn equity. Study hard, play smart. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next lesson.